part in Hanoi. My office was right beneath the control tower.
Major Harold Johnson of Blinksburg, Iowa.
I hope I'm doing this right.
He won an Air Force Clause.
Did he?
Yeah, from Sears.
Major Harold.
That's not where this is supposed to have taken me. There's another clip that was supposed to be right after that was actually of the release ceremony. We played it earlier when we were setting this up, but that's not it.
Major Harold Johnson of Blinksburg, Iowa, was among.
I apologize. I'm not mechanically able to get it back to where it was, but it actually is a brief clip of the POWs actually being released one by one. Shows John McCain coming out and being escorted to the aircraft, etc. If anybody wants to stay afterwards, we'll get it up there and you can watch it. It's a great piece of film. But the first piece was, of course, at Clark. When that was the first. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. That was the first flight to come in to Clark, and you can tell because you saw the ambulance had pulled up to the aft end of the C-141 because we had POWs that couldn't walk, and they were taken off by litters, in litters, and put on the bus, taken to the hospital. I will tell you that those who could not walk saluted the American flag from their litters as they were being carried off. And I'm still to this day disgusted that it's okay to deface the American flag. It meant so much to these people, and it's such an emblem of freedom for us that I have very little sympathy for those who see fit to deface it. I was very honored to be part of Operation Homecoming. It was something I'll never forget. Of course, by the way, the day after the POWs arrived, each batch of them began a debriefing process. And the emphasis was to try to find other people who had been captured that had not been released. As you all probably know, there's still a lot of MIAs unaccounted for from that conflict. And the initial round of debriefing was, do you know of anybody else that hasn't been released? Where did you see them, or where did you know they were? That sort of thing, to try to identify any others that had not been released during Operation Homecoming. For me, Operation Homecoming was the closing of a circle. The circle began when I walked on that C-141 at Maxwell Air Force Base in the early spring of 1970 and saw that plane load of young men that had been decimated, if you will. And it closed when the last POW got off the 141 at Clark and was delivered to the hospital at Clark, and we had everybody that we were going to get. It was like I'd been walking around for 3 years with a sore that hadn't healed, and it finally healed when the last of our men was in our hands and being taken care of. Operation Homecoming was a wonderful conclusion to a terrible war. I'm proud of the way our people, the flight crews, the liaisons, the nurses, the medical technicians, everybody involved, very proud of how they performed through it all. It was done professionally, with precision, and with compassion. I'm particularly proud of the way our POWs conducted themselves with dignity. Throughout that entire release ceremony, until they were in our hands, you would have been so proud of each and every one of them. Make you proud to be an American and be represented by people like that. You ask most Vietnam War POWs, I suspect they'll tell you, you know, I was just doing my job. I would do it again. As for my part, I stand in unmitigated awe of their character, their courage, their stamina, and their determination. Please join me in saluting Bill and each of the POWs that we were able to retrieve, and thank them for their duty and for their dedication. Bill. At ease. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions?
Any questions from
other
anybody?
than my obvious lack of ability to run a video machine.
Any questions from anyone? Yes?
Did you ever figure out what kind of plane that was? Picture of it, ran the camera?
No, I didn't, but that's another story. I'm still connected. I'm sorry. That's a very interesting story. When I got back to Clark, and the POWs were on their way to the question was, did I know what kind of airplanes I had taken pictures of in Hanoi? No, they were partially covered with tarp. But when I got to Clark, and the POWs were on the buses headed away, man, a non-uniformed man came up and said, "May I have your camera?" I said, you know, what? And he was from intelligence. And he took my camera and returned it to me, I think it was about a week later, because I still have a couple of pictures that I took on that little Brownie. In fact, I sent them to Bob. They're very poor quality. That's the old 35, you remember 35 millimeter, and they're terrible quality, but one's on the airplane coming back to Clark, and one was actually from Hanoi looking at the crowd there. But those are the only pictures I got back. The pictures of the airplanes mysteriously disappeared. So. Oh my.
I started operating.
Whew.
I want
I'm sorry. But no, so I don't know what they were. I'm 99% sure they were Russian, but I don't know what type of aircraft. I don't know what their designator was. Any other questions?
had one question.
Yeah.
Is the one liaison for one prisoner, or did one liaison have more than one assigned to him?
At least one liaison per prisoner. In some cases, there were 2 liaisons for one prisoner. No, in no case that I'm aware of did a liaison have more than one POW assigned.
Okay.
Y'all realize so much had happened to these folks while they were in captivity. I mean, they had relatives that were ill, relatives that had passed away, divorced, they had children. Some of them had children they hadn't seen since they were infants, if at all. There were all sorts of things. Some had time and grade for promotions, you know, back pay. I mean, you think of what happened to some of these people that were there for so long, and to reconstruct that history for them. I mean, some was good and some was not. You know, and there were all the emotion, all the full range of emotions that you can imagine. Imagine not knowing anything about your family for 5 or 6 or 7 years, nothing. It was a very important part of the process to work with these people and share this information with them in the right manner. Yes, sir.
Eric, did we have any planes shot down in air-to-air combat over Vietnam, or was it all by ground-to-air missiles?
Denver.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not the best to answer that.
We did. I can promise you several airplanes shot down. I was on a flight that we lost squadron commander first mission.
In air-to-air?
Air to air, yes. Their tactic was to come up behind you. They didn't have a forward firing missile like we did, like the M7. So they were positioned to come up behind you to shoot you down.
Right.
Which they stole from the Americans. Completely.
Yeah.
Several aircraft were shot down. Randy Cunningham, the first ace in the Navy, was shot down.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How long do those liaison officers stay in contact with those POWs?
I don't know. Bill might know. Liaison officer, how long were you with the liaison?
I didn't have one.
Oh, you did have one. Well, I stand
liaison-
corrected then.
My liaison officer was a very pretty, blue-eyed, blonde-haired nurse.
I was going to say hallelujah. Yeah. Somebody lucked out. I don't know the answer to that. I know that they were there at Clark, you know, of course, in Hanoi for the flight back, and at Clark with them for a period of time. We were trying to get them back to the States as quickly as we could. You know, if their medical condition warranted, we were trying to get them home as quickly as possible. Bo, you had a question?
Yeah, when did we initially find out the names of the prisoners? Pretty much immediately when they were captured?
Well, we knew a number of them when they were captured. When we got the final list of the 591 was before the peace talks were over, but how much before that, I don't know. My focus was mainly the medical handling of these people once we got them. Some of those logistics, you know, are being handled by others. So.
I can answer that. Seaman Doug Hedgel was washed off of the back of a destroyer at night out in the Gulf of Tonkin and managed to stay afloat until a Vietnamese boat picked him up, thinking he was a Navy SEAL, and brought him in. He wasn't. He was just a seaman. But he came in and was integrated with the rest of the POWs. We all had all of the known POWs we had them in alphabetical order. We alphabetized them in our minds when they were shot down and died on them and everything. And so he had that complete list. Well, about the third group that the Vietnamese, in good graces and everything, sent home, they offered him the opportunity to go. And so he went to his senior ranking officer and told him that he'd been offered to go. And Colonel Guy said, "You have all the names. You have done nothing wrong. You say nothing wrong against our government, and go." And he did. And so that's when the names came out. A lot of the names that people thought were dead. You know, there were wives that had already remarried and everything that didn't know their husbands were up there. You know, thought they were dead. So he brought the names out, and that was when my name came out officially and everything, that they knew I was alive. And that was 4 years after I was shot down.
Right.
So He brought the names out. That's where they got the most of the names.
A lot of the POWs, you know, we were uncertain about. We knew some had been shot down, we knew some had been captured on land, but knowing which had survived and which had not was a problem. And there were also some who had been captured who were killed during captivity and of course not released. So that's, you know, that's what I knew about the people. I had a manifest. In fact, my job doesn't sound like a whole lot, frankly, but on that last mission, my job, I had a list of them, and I was supposed to check them off. We did not want to leave Hanoi and not have everybody on board the airplane. You know, so when they would release a POW, they'd say, you know, Bill Austin. I'd look down, check. That was my big job, was to be sure. And when it was all done, I said, hey, Colonel, we got them all. And that's when we left.
Any other questions? Eric, I want to thank you for your service. Thank you for the hundreds, perhaps thousands of service members that you returned to their lives. Thanks for all that you did during your 4 years of service. Thanks for being with us. Let's give Eric and also Bill a round of applause.